And once again, thanks for joining us. I'm Cheryl Miller. March is Women's History Month. Women own around 11 million businesses in America, employing over 19 million people. And women have made great entrepreneurial and financial strides since Madam C.J. Walker became America's first self-made female millionaire at the turn of the 20th century. An entrepreneur herself, Richmond financial expert J.B. Bryan is here with a history lesson on women and money. Good morning, J.B.
You just gave it.
A little bit, but there's
right.
so much
That's
more
right.
to that, because we always think that things are like they are now, and they weren't, because it's
So
not that
true.
long ago that women got into the workplace and actually started owning businesses.
And you're right. And it was interesting in studying this. I learned so much, and you shared so much. And I hope that everyone really listened to what you said, because it has been not too long ago when we've started this entire journey as women. So when I look at the history of us even owning property, it's the early 1900s when women really received the full rights of owning property. When we look at the dates, it will say the early 1800s. It will say, way back, but it went state by state by state. And Virginia was among one of the last states to actually give women full rights and married women at that, to have the right. The single women, it was a lot harder for them to begin to become property owners. So in the 1900s, when women overall really had the ability to become property owners in their own right.
Buying it ourselves as opposed to inheriting it from a
That's right.
husband or a family or something like that. And I'm sure that was a big turning point as well, as far as women being able to be independent when it comes to their own finances.
And on record, it was around the late 1800s, early 1900s, when you have record of women actually being able to enter the stock market. But in many cases, they were required to work with a male financial advisor, because women like me were not allowed to even be in the business. So they weren't recruiting us. You could not find a female financial advisor. So the women were thought to, and this is in writing, the women were thought to be more emotional and not able to make these type of decisions, and certainly not have these type of discussions. So it again was in the early 1900s when women are on record of beginning to have stock accounts.
And when you think about it, not that long ago.
No, it's not. Not. I was born in 1920. No, but it wasn't. I mean, when I think about, I started my business in the 1900s, and actually in this industry, in financial services, when we're talking about women in financial, only 6%, of the industry is made up. Well, about 20% really of women, and then we look at minority women, it's a much smaller number of women in the business.
And even now, I think the fact was that women own something like just slightly more than half of the companies now, and employ so many people these days.
Well, in reality, the numbers change. And it's about 40% of privately held businesses,
which is still really good.
Are women held? Yes, and then we have to look at what are the different sizes. But women are employing a lot of people. These women-owned businesses are helping a lot of business, supporting business, and creating jobs for a lot of people. And 50% of the management positions now are held by women. But it wasn't until the 1970s where women really started becoming wealth creators.
Women's liberation kind of stepped in and took care of that. I mentioned
Yes.
Madam C.J. Walker,
Yes.
who was the first self-made millionaire.
Yes.
Other women had inherited money, but through her hair care company, she created her own wealth and became the first millionaire.
It is a very interesting topic, because I did not know that, until was overall, women overall. And it's probably because you would find that entrepreneurship was the only way to make it, and she was working with a product that dealt with women issues. She was doing healthcare and beauty products, and then she set up a multi-level marketing business. So she was really a pioneer, and there's a lot of talk about it. I saw that Sephora, a cosmetic company, featured her this month as the first self-made female millionaire.
And the fact that she was an African-American woman makes it even more amazing.
And in a way it doesn't, because Black women, African-American women, were working earlier, where in the white households, they actually were still staying at home because they didn't have to work outside. But when you're moving from being a slave, you were accustomed to working every day. So Madam C.J. Walker, her parents were slaves. She was the first member of her family to be born into freedom. So definitely it does make sense that she would be among the first because she was accustomed to working. She worked her entire life. Then she became a hairdresser because her brother were barbers. And so she worked and died at 51. So
because she worked too hard.
I am almost her age, you know, and that she was already very successful during times that I can't imagine. But Cheryl, I must bring home the fact it wasn't until the 1990s where it became commonplace, and I started my business in 1995, that it became commonplace that women were actually working outside the home.
And let me just ask you quickly, what was it in you that said, I want to be an entrepreneur and own my own business as opposed to working for somebody else?
And I think it was, I didn't understand what the glass ceiling was, but I knew that I had to put myself into a position that I could make whatever I wanted to make. So I've always been in sales. And because of studying business at the University of Virginia, I was given the opportunity to become a stockbroker. You know, and then I was given a sales job that allowed me to become a stockbroker. Really, it had to be a one. And then when I got to the firm that doesn't exist anymore, Week First, the women took me under their arm and they said, "Do you realize how rare it is to be in this business?" And I didn't. I really didn't. And they told me about the stories of how they have been paid incorrectly and that they had to find it out the hard way, that the other brokers were being paid more than they were. Amazing when I think about it, and I was in my 20s, that women before me had to open doors for me and that they explained that to me. So I hope that the people that are working now in positions that don't allow, and I thought that I was in a position that wouldn't allow for a woman to be paid less, but I was still in a position when they explained the story that even though you're 100% commission, you have to be careful and make sure that they're not paying the men at a different level than you. So then I started my own business to make sure that didn't happen.
To move forward, we've got to know the past. Jamie Bryan, thank you so much for that history lesson on women and money. If you want to know more about money, Jamie Bryan offers free money seminars every Wednesday at noon at our office in Glen Allen. Pre-registration is required. We'll post a link to more information on our website. Just go